So I'm starting with the one question fit all. What is, in your opinion, the ultimate goal of parenting that parents should have in mind, should keep in mind?
Well, I think the ultimate goal is to prepare kids to be as happy and healthy and successful in life as possible. So whether that's through what we teach them, through how we role model, through all the various things and the experiences that we help them to have, and also the experiences that we help them through, that we're trying to help them to be able to make the most out of life.
Mm-hmm. And one of the popular methods today for getting through all this stuff that we have to deal with is tapping, which you are an expert in. So I would like to hear what tapping is, and also how do you adapt it to children and or to teenagers?
Mm-hmm. When the energy is clear and flowing naturally, we experience our natural state of health and well-being. And when it gets stuck, then we don't feel so good. Mm-hmm. And we don't make as clear choices, and we don't feel as good. So in acupuncture, they use needles and they stick that in key points in different places around the face and body to stimulate the natural flow of energy. With tapping, we're simply using our fingertips to tap on these key points, and it clears the imbalances out, gets the energy flowing again, and we start to feel good again. So it clears out those uncomfortable feelings. So it's great for anybody, but it's a great tool to teach kids as well, because so often in life we go through experiences that are painful and upsetting or traumatic, and we make decisions about ourselves and decisions about life and decisions about what's safe. And so things can happen to us as kids, and we make these decisions so that as we go through life, we really limit what's possible for us because of some painful experience. So what I love is the idea of teaching tapping to kids so that in the moment when something upsetting happens, you could tap with them right then. They clear it out. They feel better. They're able to get the message without the pain and learn what they really need to learn as opposed to an interpretation of it. And it just opens up so much for their future.
Mm-hmm. And you were mentioning acupuncture, but we don't need to become experts in acupuncture, right, in order to do this with our kids.
No. All you need to know is 8 or 9 points around the body that you tap with your fingertips, and it's that simple. And that's why I wrote my children's book, because I wanted to find a simple way to teach to kids that would be fun, kind of a storybook way of looking at the tapping. So it's just a fun little process of tapping on these points. And there are a variety of things that the kids can say, and no, it doesn't require any advanced certification or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So in a moment, yes.
Oh, it certainly helps with if you're tackling heavy emotional stuff. This is what I consider complementary therapy. It's not, I wouldn't say, because I'm not a licensed therapist, I wouldn't say, well, you should never talk to a therapist. There are certain things that should be dealt with by somebody who has that kind of expertise. Mm-hmm. And, so when you're dealing with really uncomfortable stuff, you want to be careful. But in general, for most of the tapping that we would be doing, it doesn't require that kind of advanced training.
Okay, so before we give a specific example of what situations we can work with and how to do it exactly, how the tapping is done, I would like to ask you, what is an uncomfortable situation that we would rather turn over to the professionals instead of trying to solve ourselves?
Well, if it was something that was really upsetting, like, I was hesitant going here, but if it was an issue like molestation, mm-hmm. or something that was really understandably traumatic, where there's a lot of difficult implications, that's the sort of thing that I would then say, okay, we want to talk to somebody who has more experience with mental health care and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But in general, issues like, Bobby stole my toy and now I'm really mad at him, probably don't need to sign up for a session with a therapist or something like that. That's something that, you could address with the tapping.
Mm-hmm. Even though sometimes it does look like the end of the world.
Yes. I mean, obviously, so we as adults would have to look at it and say, okay, is this a traumatic event that, that is reasonably like that? Or is that, yes, the child might think, I've been traumatized because Bobby stole my toy. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think we can work through this on our own.
Okay. So, what is an example of a typical example of problems and issues that kids go through in their life as kids, in their school years, that you come across? And what is a tapping ground that you can do with kids? And I can be your guinea pig. I'm also a kid still.
Yeah, well, so am I, as obvious by my videos. Like what I just brought up, an upsetting interaction with another child, like somebody stole something, somebody said something mean. They say there's nothing so cruel as an unthinking child. Children say mean things and feelings get hurt. And it's not the end of the world, but it might feel like it at that moment. So that's the sort of thing that we could tap through. Mm-hmm. I've worked with kids who've just felt anxious about something like a test coming up. That's a great one to use with kids, is things in school where they're nervous about a test or something that they have to do, a project they're working on. And they're building it up as this really big thing and they're afraid of doing it poorly. And they're losing sleep over it, which they really, adults do that too. And we don't need to either. So we want to be clearing that stuff out.
Okay.
And sports issues. I worked with a boy who I think he was 9 years old, who had playing baseball, had gotten hit by a baseball and was now afraid to go up to bat. And he had loved baseball before and now was terrified of it. So we did some tapping on that and cleared all the fear that he had built up in his mind, and he was able to go back and enjoy baseball again.
So maybe of these two examples, we should take the one with the exams, since every single kid has to go through it, and the parents can also relate and tap along and feel the difference.
Yes, most of us are tested on a daily basis, in one way or another, whether it's the school giving us a test or just life giving us a test.
Or the kids giving us a test.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm ready.
Okay. So let's say, we'll just use the words, "I'm nervous about this test." So what we would do with the child, we would say, okay, how do you feel about the test? Well, I'm scared or I'm nervous. For adults, we would say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how nervous are you? With older kids, we could do that. With younger kids, we might say, okay, are you just a little bit scared or pretty scared, or are you a lot scared? And that way, so as we go through the tapping, they can say, okay, it's only this much, now it's gone. So we would ask them how much it is. And then, now I always give this caveat whenever I do this tapping, because folks watching this might do the tapping along with us. When we're doing the tapping, it can often bring up emotions that we've repressed. So if you're sitting on some heavy emotions, maybe some really uncomfortable stuff has been going on, then you may want to wait until you can talk to a practitioner or at least have somebody there for emotional support. So if you choose to tap along, you must take full responsibility for your own well-being. So that being said, we're gonna keep it light, but you just never know who's going to respond in a certain way. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tap on the karate chop on the side of the hand. So, and then we'd say, even though I have this test coming up.
Even though I have this test coming up.
I'm a really great kid.
I'm a really great kid.
Now, with adults, we usually say, I choose to love and accept myself. Depending on the age of the kid, that's a little esoteric. So we just say, I'm a really great kid. Even though I have this test coming up,
Even though I have this test coming up,
I'm a really great kid.
I'm a really great kid.
Even though I have this test coming up,
Even though I have this test coming up,
and I'm kind of nervous,
and I'm kind of nervous,
I'm kind of scared,
I'm kind of scared,
I want to do well,
I want to do well,
but I'm not sure that I will.
but I'm not sure that I will.
And even though I have this test coming up,
And even though I have this test coming up,
I'm still a really great kid.
I'm still a really great kid.
So then we tap the eyebrow point. I have this test coming up.
I have this test coming up.
I'm tapping the side of the eye. And I'm kind of nervous,
And I'm kind of nervous.
right under the eye. I'm kind of scared.
I'm kind of scared.
I want to do well.
I want to do well.
I'm going to try to do well.
I'm going to try to do well.
And then right here where the collarbones come together, if you make a fist right there, I'm going to do the best I can.
I'm going to do the best I can.
And then right under the arm, about 4 inches below the armpit. But I'm afraid.
But I'm afraid.
The top of the head, and then just tap all around the top of the head. I'm afraid my best won't be good enough.
I'm afraid my best won't be good enough.
I'm afraid I won't do well enough.
I'm afraid I won't do well enough.
And I'm afraid I'll be in trouble.
And I'm afraid I'll be in trouble.
I'm afraid the teacher might get mad.
I'm afraid the teacher might get mad.
I'm afraid my parents might get mad.
I'm afraid my parents might get mad.
All this fear.
All this fear.
And I don't want to be afraid.
And I don't want to be afraid.
I'd rather feel good.
I'd rather feel good.
Because I deserve to feel good.
Because I deserve to feel good.
And feeling bad
And feeling bad
won't help me on the test.
won't help me on the test.
The better I feel,
The better I feel,
the better I can think.
the better I can think.
And the better I'll do on this test.
And the better I'll do on this test.
And I choose to know
And I choose to know
that whatever happens on this test,
that whatever happens on this test,
I am still a great kid.
I am still a great kid.
I choose to know
I choose to know
that whatever happens on this test,
that whatever happens on this test,
my parents will still love me.
my parents will still love me.
I'm letting go of the fear
I'm letting go of the fear
so I can think much better
so I can think much better.
and I can do much better.
And I can do much better.
And I choose to feel really good
I choose to feel really good
because I'm a really great kid.
because I'm a really great kid.
And take a deep breath.
Whew.
So as we clear that out, hopefully the child should be just feeling more relaxed, feeling more confident. And as a parent working with a child, it would be really great to put in messages about mommy and daddy will still love you, which hopefully is true. We have a lot of parents who are very focused on grades and give their child the impression that the child's worth is dependent upon how they do in school, which is really dangerous. It's not a good motivator.
This tapping round might show parents that they can look at this differently. If they thought that valuing their child is dependent on their grades, then you brought up different options now. We're going to still love you no matter what you do, and you're a great kid just because you are.
Right. And one of the things that I often say for parents who want to tap with their kids is clear your stuff first. So often as parents, we want the child to tap because we want to fix them. Because once they're fixed, then my job's going to be easier, or my life's going to be easier. It's like, whoa, no. I need to take responsibility as a parent for my own life. So even though my kid is acting up, or even though my kid's not doing as well in school as I'd like them to, I choose to love and accept myself and my child. Because so often the pressure that we put on kids about their school and their grades is because of our own fears. And it does, in most cases, it does come out of love. It's like, well, I want my child to do well. I want them to get the best grades so that they're, able to do better in life, which sometimes happens. Sometimes, we don't, how you do in school is not necessarily a measure of how well you're going to do in life. But we want our children to be successful. That's not a bad thing. It just becomes complicated when it interferes with our relationship with our child. And if it causes us to yell at them or to create more stress and trauma for them, yeah, we want to clear that out for ourselves in order to help ourselves be much better parents. The best parent is not the one who motivates their child to get the best grades. The best parent is the one who lets their kids know that they're loved and then creates an environment for them to be more successful and to find out, okay, if they're not doing well in school, why not? And what can we do about clearing that up?
Can we do a full round of clearing for a parent?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious to know, in your experience, is it easy to get, let's say, teenagers to tap? Let's say my child comes home and she says, oh, today my friends were really nasty to me. And I'm not going to be like too professional about it. I'm just going to say, oh, she's describing frustration or disappointment in her friends. And I'll pick one of those emotions and I'll tell her, let's tap. Does that work? Do they respond well to this?
As the father of two teenagers, I can tell you that it does not always work that easily. Sometimes I can get my kids to tap with me, but when they're teenagers, everything your parents do is uncool. So, but I know that there are times when they will do the tapping on their own. But it's also retraining human beings. We get stuck when we're about being upset, and we have a right to be upset. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, stop being upset. Here, let's clear that. But you can offer it as a suggestion. You say, hey, we could do something to feel better, and they may at that moment say, you know what, that would be helpful, thanks. And they may say, not right now. And that's when, again, we need to then go and tap on ourselves, even though they don't want to feel better right now, even though they want to be grumpy, because we can't make people feel good. So we can put it out there. We can offer it. We can do, there's surrogate tapping. We can say, okay, I'm tapping for my child and, trying to help them clear it by us tapping on ourselves.
It's enough to say, I'm tapping for my child. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then I assume my child's identity for a few moments.
Yeah, you can do that. We can say, I am tapping for so and so, and I can tap in the first person as though I am that person, or I can tap in the third person. This person's upset. My daughter's anger, all of her anger, and so we can do it that way. And there have been a lot of stories of people who found this very effective. You'll try it and you'll see either, the person calms down, and even if they don't seem to calm down, we're tapping on ourselves so that we calm down. And
it's all about us.
Ultimately, because our experience is the only one that we really know.
Yeah.
So, if we can calm down, and the thing is that if we calm down, it's going to help them calm down. When they're upset and we get upset then with them, they're just more upset. So the more we can be in a place to really be supportive and loving, that's going to be the best that we can offer them.
Thanks for that tip. I see myself tapping all day long for all of my children and my husband.
Well, one of the favorite quotes is the quote that's attributed to Mahatma Gandhi: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Well, we can apply that as parents too. Be the change you wish to see in your kids. If we want to see them be more productive, more, harder workers, better people, it's like, okay, well then I need to be the role model. So it's a great quote to apply to our parenting as well.
That's great. So what is EFT, and how do you explain it to children in words that they understand, like you explained it to them in your wonderful book, The Wizard's Wish?
Thank you. In acupuncture, they would use needles and stick needles in key points along the body and face to stimulate that natural flow of energy. With tapping, we just tap with our fingertips. So that clears out the disruption and allows us to get back to feeling good. Obviously, explain this to children, it's like, okay, so acupuncture for thousands of years, it's a little bit much. So that's why I wrote the book, is I wanted to come up with a fun way of explaining it. So in The Wizard's Wish, a wizard discovers that when he's not feeling good, he starts tapping with his wand on his face, and this little creature pops out of his ears, which is, he says, wow, you've been making me feel yucky. I'm going to call you a yucky. So these are these yuckies. And that's the interesting thing about having the book translated into so many different languages, including Hebrew, is for each of the translators to try to come up with a word for yucky, since it's not a real word. So there's all kinds of variations on what these yuckies are. So, but the basic idea that these yuckies, for whatever reason, get inside and they stop our energy, our good, positive, magic energy from flowing. So when we tap the yuckies out. And once the yuckies are gone, then we start to feel good again.
Mm-hmm. And in the book you show how anyone can be a wizard without a wand. All we need is fingers.
Absolutely. The wizard discovers that our fingers work as wands because the magic's inside us, not inside the wand.
My kids were convinced. It worked.
Excellent. Okay, so a tapping round for parents. Because when we want to introduce tapping to our kids, very often it's because there's something that the child is doing that we want them to stop. But if we're attached to that in some way, we might be bringing a lot of our stuff in. So the best thing is for us as parents to clear what's going on for us. Then we're much more clear about how to help our children. So it's sort of a general tapping phrase that we could use in terms of, what it is that's going on and with our child and what we're feeling. For instance, we could say, my child is driving me crazy. So we'll use that as our setup phrase. Mm-hmm. So if you'll be my echo voice and I'll say the phrases, you'll repeat them back, and people watching this can repeat back. And I have to throw in the caveat that if you choose to tap along, you must take full responsibility for your own well-being. It's because I don't know what's going on for you, and you may need some emotional support while you're going through the process, but it shouldn't be a problem. It should be light and fun, and we'll clear out some of that stuff that gets in our way as parents. So, even though my kids drive me nuts.
Even though my kids drive me nuts.
I choose to love and accept myself.
I choose to love and accept myself.
Even though my kids drive me crazy.
Even though my kids drive me crazy.
I choose to love and honor myself.
I choose to love and honor myself.
Even though my kids drive me nuts.
Even though my kids drive me nuts.
They do things I don't want them to do.
They do things I don't want them to do.
They don't do things I do want them to do.
They don't do things I do want them to do.
They just don't seem to be perfect.
I just don't seem to be perfect. And they don't seem to be perfect.
Yeah. And part of me wants them to be perfect all the time.
And part of me wants them to be perfect all the time.
And part of me knows they are perfect all the time.
And part of me knows they are perfect all the time.
I just don't always feel that way.
I just don't always feel that way.
And even though my kids drive me nuts.
And even though my kids drive me nuts.
I choose to deeply and completely.
I choose to deeply and completely.
Love, honor, and accept myself.
Love, honor, and accept myself.
And anyone else.
And anyone else.
Who might be involved in this.
Who might be involved in this.
Including my parents.
Including my parents.
And especially my kids.
And especially my kids.
My kids are driving me nuts.
My kids are driving me nuts.
They drive me crazy.
They drive me crazy.
With all those things they do.
With all the things they do.
And all the things they're not doing.
And all the things they're not doing.
that I want them to do.
that I want them to do.
Why can't they do it the way I want them to?
Why can't they do it the way I want them to?
Why can't they be perfect?
Why can't they be perfect?
And part of me knows they are perfect.
And part of me knows they are perfect.
But not the way I want them to right now.
But not the way I want them to right now.
All these things that drive me crazy.
All these things that drive me crazy.
And sometimes,
when
they're doing these things, I react in imperfect ways. And then I'm not a perfect parent.
And then I'm not a perfect parent.
And I say things I regret.
And I say things I regret.
Maybe I do things I regret.
Maybe I do things I regret.
And I choose to knock that off.
And I choose to knock that off.
Even though my kids drive me crazy.
Even though my kids drive me crazy.
I choose to really love them.
I choose to really love them.
And remind them of that.
And remind them of that.
And make sure that they know it.
And make sure that they know it.
I want my kids to know.
I want my kids to know
that no matter how much they're driving me crazy.
That no matter how much they're driving me crazy.
I love them.
I love them.
And I think they're awesome.
And I think they're awesome.
And I might still want them to change their behavior.
And I might still want them to change their behavior.
And I may need to do and say certain things.
And I may need to do and say certain things.
To help them do better.
To help them do better.
And at the same time. I'm giving myself permission. To not be so crazy.
To not be so crazy.
To not go so nuts.
To not go so nuts.
So that I can let them know how much I love them.
So I can let them know how much I love them.
And I can make the best decisions as a parent.
And I can make the best decisions as a parent.
Because when they're driving me crazy. I don't make the best decisions. And the fact is. They can't drive me crazy. I can only allow myself to be driven crazy. And I can choose not to be driven crazy. I'm clearing all these reasons. Why I should get so upset. All this need to get upset. All this need to go crazy. And some of the reasons I go crazy. May go all the way back to my own childhood. And things that I did. And the ways that my parents responded. And even though I didn't like the way they responded. Part of me said. Oh, that's how you're supposed to respond as a parent. And so I'm still doing it. Even though it may not be effective. And I'm letting that go. Clearing all these old reasons. For allowing myself to go crazy. Clearing those at a cellular level. Clearing them all the way back through my past. Back through all those times in my life. That I learned to respond in this way. I choose to relax. And figure out the best way. To be the best parent I can be. In body, mind, and spirit. And take a deep breath.
That's very comprehensive. There's everything in it. It starts with me identifying what's bothering me. My kids are driving me crazy, or my kids are not behaving, or my kids are so-and-so. And then I'd simply describe what's bothering me in their behavior. And from there, when I'm a little clearer, I go on to seeing what are my buttons that were pushed in the situation. I can separate their behavior from my life, in my history.
Yeah.
And then I'm clear enough that I can say, well, maybe there's a different way to react to this, or to think about it, or to think about my children.
Right.
And then finally I'm ready to let out a big exhale, because I moved some energy around and I'm clearer now, literally clearer in my body.
Yeah.
So that would be the formula for any emotion that we recognize in relation to our kids and their behavior. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a formula. I don't know the formula, because when I start these rounds, I never know exactly what I'm going to say. So it's as it's coming through, it's like, oh yeah, I should talk about that. Oh, well, we ought to tap about this too. Oh, what about this? And then that's why sometimes my rounds go a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But we don't need to get so caught up in that, or even trying to come up with a formula. I mean, it's great if you want to use that as a formula in terms of breaking it down. So if that works for someone, great. But I wouldn't want anyone to get too caught up in, oh, what's the right way to do it? The right way, you don't have to get it right, you just have to get it started. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of recognizing, okay, I'm feeling upset. There's something uncomfortable inside of me. It's up to me to clear that. You know, we can't make our kids responsible for how we feel. Too many people have done that, and maybe our parents did it to us, you know, and that's how we've learned it. But recognizing that, okay, I don't feel great right now. I want to feel better. And so I need to clear what's going on inside of me. And it may just be a matter of starting to tap and not even worrying about saying anything. Yeah. Just clearing the stress. Just like we wouldn't, you know, if our kid is upset about something, they may be upset about something that we've done. So it'd be kind of, we wouldn't go to our kid and say, okay, well, I'm going to change everything about me so that you don't have to feel bad anymore. It's like, oh, I want to help you to feel good, even if I'm not doing everything right all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's teaching them to be responsible.
Mm-hmm. And it can be that simple. I'm just standing here and tapping, and whatever is getting processed, that's what gets processed.
Yeah. And if you want to, you know, say things out loud, and you can say all kinds of different things. You can say affirmations. You can just talk about what's bothering you. You can say the same issue over and over again. This stress, this stress, this stress. You can say words to a prayer. You can say lyrics to a song, or just hum. And, you know, just allow whatever's coming through. And just, it's a process of discovery as we tap through and peeling the layers of the onion and see what's coming up. And just address it, acknowledge that it's there, not blame ourselves, not get upset about it any more than we already are, and just, oh, so that's there, and that's there, okay, and I'm letting it go, I'm letting it go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure.